What's up, everybody? Welcome back to AR Movie Memos, where we are about to get into the series review of Alien Earth. Welcome back, everybody. Now, this will be the complete series review and my thoughts, like I said, on the series review of FX Alien Earth. Earlier on within the series, I did a review on the first 2 episodes that debuted that is up on the channel, so feel free to look at that. And then if you want to come back to get my overall thoughts for the whole series, come back to this video. But like I said, we're gonna get into this review. Now, after viewing the first 2 episodes, episode 1 Neverland and episode 2 Mr. October, I was very optimistic about the show, especially a lot of the things that they set up early on. Some things I was more intrigued with, or I thought was very interesting concepts that, they introduced, and kind of wanted to see where it would go, especially with the introduction of the 3 classes of the cyborgs, the synthetics, and the hybrids, and just playing with the idea of putting a human into a synthetic body, or humans that have cybernetic enhancements. And like I said earlier in the first review, talking about just the idea of being a human, or trying to push humans to the next evolutionary stage through technology, and seeing these ideas through, like I said previously, through things like Ghost in the Shell, and also having a lot of influences from things like Blade Runner and things of that nature. And since this is called Alien Earth, just learning more about the Weyland-Yutani company, learning about the other company Prodigy that we are introduced to, and the other 3 companies, which are all made up and called the 5, which makes up and they talk about how all 5 of these companies control certain territories on the planet. And with the Weyland company continuing, and also for us for the first time seeing how they got access to the, as we know it as, the xenomorph, but also with the other alien species that they have on board, which they are bringing back to Earth. And like I said, very interesting concepts and things that they set up, which I thought could have, been very interesting to see how everything would play out. Adding more lore, in depth, and layers to the Alien franchise as a whole, especially since this is a prequel set 2 years before the events of the first Alien film. Especially since this is not the first time or first attempt to explore more with the xenomorphs, the Weyland company, and all the events prior to the very first Alien film, with things like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, even though they did not stick the landing with a lot of things that they did. But it was still, I felt like, a good attempt at trying to set up a more expansive universe, and to explore where the xenomorphs come from, because that's always one of the big mysteries and one of the things that have always intrigued people that are fans of the Alien series. But unfortunately, where this show thought it had succeeded, it had failed and crashed down miserably, because After episode 2, the show just starts to free fall, and I'm just waiting to hit the pavement and just waiting for it to be done. And by the time it is over, it leaves you with just so many unanswered questions, but also just have you thinking, what was the point of this show even being created? Like I said previously, this show has very interesting high concept ideas and also very interesting premises that you could build the show around, or even they could be shows within themselves, with exploring where these alien species came from, that they collected them from with the Weyland-Yutani Company, exploring what would happen if you did put a child into a cybernetic body and what the ramifications and what the consequences of that would be. And also just with the one of the characters in the show named Mero, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the character's name wrong, but his character on the pursuit of gaining the alien specimens back from the Prodigy Company. That could have been a show within itself. Like I said, there are all these different things, plots, subplots, and just ideas that they have throughout this show, and it just is a complete mess, and it doesn't know how to stick the landing, or it doesn't really know what it wants to be. And speaking of the character Mero, he was probably my favorite character to follow throughout the series, especially learning more about the character and his motivations halfway throughout the series, and just what his purpose was, especially after learning about certain things about the character and certain events that happen between him and also the character of Kirsch, who is one of the androids that works for Prodigy. Like I said, these were the most interesting characters and most likable characters throughout the series. And like with the character of Kirsch, he kind of reminds me of David in Prometheus and also in Alien Covenant. And just with the rest of the cast of characters that's in the show, and just the cast itself, I just felt like these were just annoying, unlikable characters. And I mean, this really isn't like a spoiler what I'm about to say, but just like with them inserting these kids in these adult android bodies, I just thought it was a little cringeworthy sometimes watching these episodes, seeing them act like children, and then also forgetting and then realizing, you know, at times throughout watching the series, it's just like, oh yeah, these are just children in these cybernetic hybrid bodies. And they have this continuous theme of Peter Pan, Netherland, and the Lost Boys. And I mean, it's very heavy-handed. It's obvious what they're doing, but it just really doesn't do anything for the story, especially just for where it goes. And honestly, it goes nowhere, especially by the time you get to the finale of how everything plays out with everything. And as I am going throughout this review, I know maybe some of you are wondering, well, you know, how are the aliens, how are the xenomorphs, and you know, just that aspect of the show. And even with that, it's very underwhelming and just a wasted potential with what they could have done. With this being called Alien Earth and the idea of the xenomorphs touching down on the planet, it's always been kind of played around with, and it's been explored in comics in books and any other IPs that they have done with Alien. So it has been done before, just never been done on the big screen and or even on the small screen. And with them having the opportunity of doing this, it was just squandered. And honestly, I feel like it was really even disrespectful just because of how they treat the xenomorphs in this show, just in general. In any other previous Alien film, whether it was good or bad, the xenomorph was always the dangerous creature throughout the film that was always lurking around the corner, and you was always fearful of it. And not even by the time when it got to the stage of it being a xenomorph, but even just from the stage of being a face hugger, and just when it goes through the metamorphosis throughout the film, and even in films like Prometheus, Alien Covenant. And I know, like I said, people may not like those films, but they did things and they experimented with just the germ of the idea of what the xenomorph is, where it comes from, and its evolution throughout time, where it got to the stage of what we know it as the xenomorph. In this show, it just gets basically reduced to being a pet, and it's just kind of jarring and just really just surprising, just the direction that they went with this thing. Because even just out of film, I mean, the alien itself, the xenomorph, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's one of the most recognizable and just kind of scary creatures that was ever made. And then seeing it now reduced to just being a pet for a little girl that's in a adult cybernetic body, it was just really jarring, just even seeing that. And then also, the xenomorph isn't even the most interesting alien throughout the whole series. Yeah, our most interesting alien is a little eyeball that has tentacles that will attach itself to any type of organism and replace itself with its own eyeball, and will attach itself to the nervous system and take control of the organism that it's in. And he or she, whatever the little alien thing is, it's the most interesting and fascinating thing throughout the show. And I was rooting for the eyeball throughout the whole show, just to take everybody out. It's the smartest being, and it's the most cleverest out of all of the creatures. And like I said, it's very fascinating that this eyeball upstaged the xenomorph in his own show, because even like with the other alien species that they show and they introduce, I mean, they are interesting, but there's really nothing for them to do. They're just there just to basically just take people out when the time comes. But yeah, but other than that, I mean, really, there's really even no point of even really having the other species, within the show that they even showcase. But even for, all the negative that I am giving the show, and really I don't really have any too much positive to say, but I will say I did enjoy seeing the set designs. I mean, the people who did the behind the scenes stuff and made the sets and the designs for everything, I thought they did a stand-up job, especially giving it the feel of the original Aliens film, or the first Alien film, especially with the ship designs, the room designs, and just the aesthetic of how the show looks. Like I said, with that, the portrayal of the characters of Marrow and the other cyborg in the show. But other than that, I mean, there's really not really anything to praise throughout the show in my eyes. I just think this was just a completely missed opportunity and just really a waste of time for, you know, people that are fans of the Alien franchise and was waiting and have been longing for just, you know, something good to come from this franchise. I mean, it has been a long time since really anything positive has come from the franchise as a whole. I mean, just over time, I mean, we can't just always be praising, you know, Alien and Aliens, and, you know, I know people feel, you know, mixed about Alien 3. You know, Alien Resurrection isn't a good film. You can have fun with it depending on how you look at it. And you know, Prometheus and Alien Covenant, they were ambitious ideas that they were doing, just didn't hit the landing and just kind of messed up a lot of things, especially with the lore, depending on how you want to approach it. And then something like Romulus, I didn't like Romulus, but I know there are people that did like it. But just, if I had to rank everything, this is the worst thing out of the whole franchise. You know, even like I said, like I always thought Covenant and Resurrection was, you know, bottom tier, even with with Romulus. But yeah, Alien Earth is the worst thing that could have happened to the franchise. And it just sucks that, you know, now we just have to continue to wait, I guess, you know, for something good to come for this franchise. But honestly, after this, I mean, I really don't even care. I mean, like I said, just with, you know, overall thoughts, just to close out the video, show was a huge disappointment. Had a little hope for it, for the show, especially for the franchise, to get it kind of kick-started and maybe going in a really good direction. But just bad writing across the board. Didn't care for the actors or the acting throughout the show, and for the good performances that were in it, they were wasted, and just too many different plots and ideas that they could have just stuck with one or two things and they could have just ran from there with the show. But like I said, one of the biggest things is the character assassination of the xenomorph, and just how they have just made one of the most fierce and scariest creatures throughout, you know, science fiction horror, and just out of, you know, just alien creatures, and they domesticated it, you know, into a pet dog. And like I said, it was just jarring. It was just really surprising. And, you know, just overall, I mean, I wouldn't recommend anybody to watch this. I mean, if you want to watch it, you know, like, hey, you know, that's your thing, you know, because who knows, you may like it, you know. Like I said, this is just my opinion, this is my review on it. But I feel like if you're a real Alien fan, or just if you care about this franchise, I think that, you know, you are going to have disdain for this, you know, like I have. But that is my review for Alien Earth. And you know, let me know how you guys feel, you know, in the comment section. You know, if you guys saw the series, if you liked it, if you disliked it, if you disagree with me, you know, that's fine. You know, like I said, let me know what your thoughts are on this series, and not even just on the series, but even just on the Alien franchise just as a whole, and just how you guys feel about it, you know, of late and whatnot. But yeah, I would just love to hear you guys input and let me know how you guys feel. And once again, thank you guys for taking your time out and listening to this review of Alien Earth. If you guys have not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with not just the reviews for, Alien Earth of the TV series, especially since it's over with now, but we have other movies, shows, other content for you guys to stay up to date with, especially when it comes to movies, television, and things within the entertainment realm. This is AR Movie Memos. This is your movie critic AR. Thank you again for the listen, and I will see you guys on the next review. You guys have a good one.